All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
And hello, all. It is another day on an eventful week. We'll discuss a lot of stuff going down in the Middle East and beyond. And our Tuesday show always brings you David Cay Johnston, the Pulitzer Prize winner, who's so generous to spend time with us each and every week because we can become so wrapped up in the Middle East, we forget about many of the other things going on. There's a substantial number of legal cases against Donald Trump, but there's also a completely political and, might I say, a kind of a chess game going on with House speakership and with the next top-of-ticket presidential election. I'm talking about RFK Jr. entering the race. So you've got, I think, a lot going on, again, independent of the Middle East. Don't get me wrong, front and center is clearly what's happening in Israel and Gaza and Lebanon and Iran and with the Saudis. So there's all of that going on. Today we've got Tony joining us, everyone. So how about it for Tony?
Thanks, Tony.
Yeah. And Kim is here, too.
Kim, how are you?
Yeah, so let's get it on now. Let's get it on now. I have questions that are coming up. I guess the Nikki show was dark today, so people were concerned that Kim is not well or Nikki's not well or they're not doing the show anymore.
Nope.
Please clear that up right away.
Show is being done. Everything's fine. Nikki's in San Francisco working. I have a sick child at home and a husband with morning meetings, so we're kind of tag teaming it. He took the morning, and now here I am. He's handling it, and I'm here. There
Great.
You go.
So everything's fine. And again, if you're just joining us and you don't know who the hell Nikki is a woman who worked with me at KGO Radio, and KGO Radio was the birthing place for the show, really. We took our show when KGO Radio went away, very powerful talk radio station in San Francisco and Northern California. I mean, it's a legendary station. And when they changed format to this sports gambling format, we took our show to YouTube. And so when I say we, it's not just my show, but Nikki is the host of a show that's on another channel, the Nikki Maduro Show channel. And so she does that show. And there was no show there today. That's why everyone was a bit concerned. It's our 1-year anniversary, everyone.
Yeah.
Congrats to Mark, T, Kim, Albert, and Tony on your 1-year anniversary. Thank you for providing a top-notch show with the best guests. This is from Deborah B. I couldn't see. Thank you.
Yeah.
10 spot. Come on. Big shout out,
Big
Deborah.
shout out.
Thank you. We are crowdfunded, and so I appreciate all the contributions, but really appreciate the positive sentiments. I've heard so much in the last week that has really, it's cut through. You know, I mean, I work very hard on this show. I think probably you can tell, but it's a, it's an
You can
effort.
tell. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an effort to organize and to, you know, and Kim helps enormously, and Kim's really stepped up in like the last couple of months to help organize guests. And because if I'm doing guests and Kim's doing guests, or if I'm doing guests sort of, and then Kim, then everything gets disorganized. You need really one person to bring coherence to that, and Kim is that person on our show now, and it's really quite helpful. Coherence is a ding word. So we've asked for people to send greetings, and people are sending greetings. If you have one, you can send it to our email, and we will post it. Tony's going to post all of them. Happy anniversary. It's my anniversary, too, says Kim.
Happy anniversary,
Another Kim.
Yay.
Congratulations, Kim Rossline, it looks like. Yeah.
There's a lot of us Kims rolling around.
Yeah, it's a great name. It's a powerful name. As Spencer says, chit, chit, chit.
Chit.
Yeah. So you can send it to, what is the email address they send it to if they have a greeting? It's happy anniversary mts@gmail.com. Happy anniversary mts@gmail.
And
if it's
I am so moved by some of these messages coming in, and so just I don't know, I guess moved is really the word, just overwhelmed with how much the outpouring of support for the show. It's really, really cool.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you can't help but be moved when people say, I've been battling illness or I've had major family setbacks, and, the one area of solidity was your show and being able to count on it, and solidity's a ding word. The idea somehow that you could be that important to some life is I don't want to overstate it. I don't, it's just a show. But on another level, we do feel a relationship with you. So that is something that we feel also. It's not just one way. So Stan Pollock, my favorite CPA, has checked in with a big shout out for Stan.
Big shout out.
What does it say, please, Kim? Because my
Mark and team, thanks for keeping us informed and entertained. All of you followed you from the beginning. Thank you, Stan.
Thank you, Stan, or thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Stan Pollock. It's not easy out here. Let me say that,
I've
Stan.
told you, it's never easy being
It's
in this
not
business.
easy in this business. So it's very good to hear from all of you. In fact, today I will tell you that I'll tell you this in advance. Tony, I'm going to tell you this. We will be demonetized today.
Why?
Nice. We play music?
No, because what's happening in Israel and what did happen with the massacres that occurred in Israel, you need to know it. And the U.S. media, in the main, is not telling the story. I've noticed they've been very circumspect about reporting details. Circumspect is a ding word. The idea somehow that you could report this carnage and these massacres and not talk a little bit about what was going on. This wasn't just a military incursion. It was a terrorist incursion. Yeah. And because we will talk a little bit about it, and I'm not even going to get into super gory detail, but enough that we will be demonetized. So I warn all of our stations will be demonetized today. So anything before I proceed, Kim? Kathleen Bryant, look at that. A 20. Come on.
Big shout out.
Big shout out. Thank you, Kathleen.
There, demonetization fixed.
But what's that? What's that?
So there, demonetization fixed.
Yeah, demonetization. Thank you for that, Kathleen. That helps us since you're going to be demonetized.
Fix that problem today.
We had, speaking of big shout
out,
we had Dan Ashley yesterday. He had sent a video. Yeah. Tony, I don't know if you got it, but at the end of the video, he wishes us well, and then he does he takes a beat and he goes, big shout out.
Big shout out.
That is Dan Ashley, that big shout out. So that's why that's so much fun. Spencer Christian is confirmed to join us for our anniversary meetup, which is going on. It's a virtual meetup. It'll happen the day after tomorrow, Thursday night. And I actually lost a couple of East Coasters because of the later time. So I have one more seat because I had one person waiting. They said, if you get an opening, can you? So that person gets that. I have one more seat. If you want to join us for the virtual meetup, it starts at 7:45 in the evening on Thursday. And you can join us. Just RSVP to, really, guys, nobody is putting it up there? Everybody just, I thought I gave you a real good ramp up there. No? Can I just finish this thought before I have Gail? Let me
Sorry,
find
I thought
it.
that's what you wanted up there. Are you
No,
talking
I
about
wanted the meetup. What is the meetup RSVP? It's, I think it's a banner. Sorry. I think it's there it is. No, that's the, okay. So we really haven't evolved much in the last year.
Whoever is producing this thing.
It is amazing that I could...
Whoever is producing this thing has no idea
offense,
what
Tony.
they're doing.
I believe it's...
I don't know what the hell he wants either, so I don't know.
I believe it's MTS Meetup. Whatever you...
Yeah, hold on.
Oh, my God. This is unbelievable. I just can't believe it. Oh.
How would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir.
I don't know. I just don't know. Gosh. It's just so crazy.
Oh, my Lord.
It's not even worth it. I've got one seat. I don't care if somebody takes it or not. I can't believe what that is. I thought it was easy.
Why are you yelling?
Nothing is ever easy here on the Mark Thompson
just
Show.
Can't believe
No.
it. Poor Tony is waiting with other stuff stacked up.
Yeah.
That's it. I think the problem is. Yeah, that's not. There was actually another one in there, but maybe Albert didn't push it to you. But yeah. All right, this is fine. We can't have nice things. You kids ruin everything.
Why are you yelling?
It's a virtual meetup. It's our anniversary night. It's Thursday. No, that's the old time. It's a new time. It's been replaced. I just need what's the RSVP, Tony?
Why are you yelling?
All right.
Oh.
Let me find the RSVP.
Give me 1 second. I'm bringing it up now.
God.
Would this be a good time to thank Gail?
Yes, it would be. Thank you.
Yeah.
Gail, talk me off the ledge, Gail, please. Please read it if you would, Kim.
Gail slaps down a $20 super sticker and says,
shout out!
Big shout out.
Come
she
on.
says, the world is so scary right now. Some of the outrageous chants I've heard, I have to vent. I'm disgusted. I hope this show doesn't get demonetized. Yeah.
Well, the show will be demonetized, but we'll still be here. But thank you. Your 20, as Tony was saying, makes up for the fact that we're demonetized. So thank you, Gail, for that. And you're right. I mean, Gail is right. You can't focus on this and not get lost a little bit in how grim everything is. By the same token, we will have fun. You know, it's been fun to wonder what the RSVP address is. Wasn't that fun when we wonder what the...
Fantastic.
Do you have it yet, Tony?
Jim with a $10 super sticker coming
Come on, big shout
Nice.
out.
Big shout out.
The limit 20 people, mtsmeetup@gmail.com. mtsmeetup@gmail.com. I only have one seat. I can't believe we spent 5 minutes looking for I have one seat available. mtsmeetup@gmail.com. All right, thank you, Tony. Thank you, pal.
Thanks, Tony.
Yeah.
And thank you, Jim. We appreciate it.
I did, and I did dump it on Tony. He's a sympathetic guy. How about Susan? Did you see this? Did you already put this up here, Kim? No.
No, not yet.
Do you want to do it, or when I hit it, somebody else hits it, just like that? See, I did it again. All right. I don't know what's going on here today.
Susan, $20 super sticker.
Thank you,
Happy
Susan.
anniversary, Mark, Kim, Albert, and Tony. I love listening to you all. I look forward to listening to you for many years to come. Thank you for all you do. That's kind.
Wow, that is super cool. Susan Sands, big shout out.
Big shout out.
Thank you
And
so much.
Thank you
Murphy.
so much.
Murphy, a stalwart supporter. Thank you so much. Murphy.
Thank
Mark,
you
Kim.
so much.
Everyone, I owe you an anniversary shout out. It has been a real crazy time at my business. You are super important to me.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Thanks, Murphy.
Thank you, Murphy. Big shout out.
Big shout out.
Thank you. Didn't expect
John
all this.
Anderson,
Wow.
$10. Happy anniversary, MTS crew.
Come on, John.
Big shout out.
Big shout out to you, John.
Really
you handsome
nice.
fool. Nice to see you.
Sausalito Steve for 20. Stay strong. Mark and Kim, thanks for a great year.
Yeah. Wow. Sausalito Steve, big shout out.
Big shout out.
Thank you for the 20, pal. That's really great. So our demonetization is offset by the remonetization that we're getting from our audience.
Exactly.
Vilma, and she will be joining us for the meetup. Just a little something before you are demonetized. Thank you.
Thank
Big
you,
shout
Vilma.
out.
Big shout
Vilma.
out.
Thank you for the $5. Spencer as well with a $5. I
Big
guess we can
shout
just
out.
sit. All right. I have Jim Slayton with a super sticker.
Big shout out.
Shout out. My God, this is crazy. It almost puts me in a good mood.
Maybe we're turning things around. I don't know.
So Courtney was deathly ill last week.
I know.
And,
Is she feeling better?
She was coughing and just brutal, like really, like one of those things you go, I don't know, maybe I should take her to, some kind of, what is that, emergency care or whatever.
Right.
So, but I was fine. But now I'm starting to get these cold symptoms. It's like, oh, really, dude? So that just to explain my little irritation.
Just in time for Thursday, right?
Yeah, exactly. Just in time for Thursday, exactly. Thanks for being here, everyone. Let's get started.
The Mark Thompson Show.
The situation now in Israel, I will get to. As you know, I think this is not an accident, the timing of this Hamas raid. It was supported by Iran. You couldn't have that degree of push from Hamas, the training, the armaments, the strategy, without the support of Iran. And so Iran has an interest in destabilizing relations that looked to be stabilizing. What do I mean by that? Of course, I mean the Saudi rapprochement, the normalization of relations between the Israelis and the Saudis, was really something that was happening. This would have been truly a watershed moment in Middle East relations. And the Iranians did not want that and do not want that. So the push by Hamas in this case, in a sense, proxies for Iran. That was one of the huge reasons that this was timed for this moment. There's also the undeniable fact that within Israel there is a schism, there's a split. There is the Netanyahu government that's trying to seize power by going around the judiciary. You know, we talked about it, we reported on it, we talked to Rothman about it, to essentially make them unaccountable to the Israeli judiciary. And within Israel, that has created huge protests. Think about the Trumpsters versus the, never Trumpsters. It was sort of in that world where you see the growth of an autocratic regime and those who want to beat back an autocratic regime. So even within the Israeli military, you had this break. You had this, I'm not going to serve if this stands, if this Netanyahu government goes around the Israeli judiciary. You had that going on in the Israeli military. So again, you have normalization of relations between Saudi and Israel in the offing. It was working toward a formalized agreement. And you have this schism within Israel itself that includes the military. If you will, a distraction such that it seemed to be an opportune moment for the move that was made. And lastly, it's being now widely reported that, and I can't remember whether we touched on this yesterday or not, that the Israelis were aware of all of these exercises that were essentially rehearsals for this Hamas terrorist attack. The largest terrorist attack, one-day attack in Israeli history. But they didn't take it seriously. They thought it impossible. They thought it literally something that Hamas would never do, that they would never take on the Israeli military in this fashion. They would never marshal these kinds of forces. So all of these exercises that they were apparently aware of, they didn't pay any attention to. I mean, when we talk about Israel's 9/11, you've heard it compared in all of these different ways. The one thing I would say about 9/11, there are two things I would say about 9/11 in regards to what happened in Israel. And then I want to play you a little bit what actually happened from reporters who were there on the ground. I think we've got a couple of good videos waiting. But let me just mention this because I think this is quite important and quite relevant, especially when you hear 9/11 talked about. In 9/11, in the case of 9/11, there was U.S. intelligence that told us what? Guys were taking planes and learning how to fly them without ever learning how to land them. The idea was to crash them. There was literal intelligence on this. And as you know, for a number of reasons, government agencies not talking. And also, no one took that seriously. No one took that threat seriously or paid attention to the documented threat that was in the U.S. But the second thing that 9/11 did was it produced a justification for a horrifying war, the Iraq War. That was the hook on which George Bush's administration hung invading Iraq. And I don't need to tell you what a bad idea that was. So I worry that this 9/11, if, again, it's talked about in that way, I don't know that it's a direct parallel. that this 9/11 for Israel could also produce a kind of vengeance, a kind of anger, and a kind of reflex charge by Israel into Gaza that gets us nowhere closer to peace in this region. And yet I also understand how difficult peace is to make with a terrorist group that is bent on your destruction, in the case of Israel. And they are a brutal terrorist group, as we're learning. The massacres, the beheadings of children, of baby. I mean, it's unspeakably awful. I mean, there's a cruelty on top of this general terrorism invasion, mowing down these festival goers, just as they ran, they were all mowed down. These are all innocent civilians, all of them. Here's the report from Israel a day later. Go ahead, Tony, please.
Expect that it would be like this, the horrors that I'm hearing from these soldiers. As I mentioned earlier, about 40 babies at least were taken out on gurneys. Still, right now, they're going house to house, still evacuating dead bodies, killed Israeli citizens who were killed
I have to cut in. It's such a shocking, jarring statement there. And just for our viewers, we're in a new hour here on the broadcast who very likely weren't with us last hour to understand that you've come in there to find this small community littered with the dead and slaughtered bodies of Israeli civilians primarily, and you're saying 40 babies, dead babies.
That is what one of the commanders told me. And you continue to see just cribs overturned, strollers left behind, all of these doors wide open. He said, we don't know the exact number of casualties because they're still collecting dead bodies, still going door to door because the active fighting here just stopped. He said it came in waves almost. Every 20 minutes they thought maybe, okay, I think we finally cleared all the terrorists, and then 30 minutes later another cell would emerge. So it was ongoing, and even when they thought that it had finally ended, more terrorists popped out of nowhere, and that continues to be the scene now. It is under control now, and
that's good. I know
were they
Joe
at a child care center or something, all those children?
I don't know. I mean, there are a lot of kids. You have I saw one family had 8 children, another family had 4 children. There was so I don't know exactly what was going. They didn't mention a daycare center, but this is, what is this, Tony? I know Joe Biden is speaking right now. Kim will have details on that. Bottom of the hour. Go ahead, Tony. Let's.
I can get the Biden if you want me to. I can get it right now if you want.
Do you want to put up Biden for
a
moment?
And I'll see what I can do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not in a hurry to carry Biden simply because I feel there are a limited number of things that Biden is going to do. I think Biden is someone, and this is important. I mean, both Obama and Biden distanced themselves from Netanyahu a bit. I mean, I think that Biden is careful about what he says. On the other hand, this is such a brutal massacre that occurred on a large scale. And there are American and Israeli and maybe other nations involved in the hostages who are in Gaza right now and likely spread out all over Gaza.
It's different than the situation in Ukraine where they weren't militarily strong, because Israel is very strong militarily. So they may not need the same type of assistance that Ukraine needed. And so it seems like President Biden has came out at the very beginning and said the United States stands with Israel, but in the way of help, I don't know what they need from us. Because
they've asked for some weaponry, so they will probably get that. But I also think that this is, in a weird way, not your typical military incursion of the sort that we've seen with Russia and Ukraine. These aren't tanks coming across. These aren't planes coming across. Typically, this is a guerrilla incursion. Hamas is a guerrilla terrorist organization. So they they expressly attack civilians. I mean, Hamas has been around for a long time, blowing up buses full of people, blowing up coffee shops in the afternoon. Hamas is a terrorist organization, and they go after civilians, and they create civilian terror. One of the reasons Israel has a wall is because there was so much in the way of daily massacres in Israel with the blood on the hands of Hamas or Hezbollah or Islamic Jihad, etc. There are a number of them, but Hamas is the ruling group in Gaza. They had elections and elected Hamas. Now, I also think that the people in Gaza who are suffering terribly in this packed region that is, so very troubled, they likely don't even want Hamas there. I mean, I'm not suggesting that each and every person in Gaza wants Hamas. I'm just saying they're the controlling entity there. So what do you have, Tony? Sorry. Do you want to hear a little bit of this, Kim? What do you think?
Please, yeah.
We
I think
can
we
jump
should
out whenever you want.
Good afternoon. There are moments in this life, and I mean this literally, when the pure, unadulterated evil is unleashed on this world. The people of Israel lived through one such moment this weekend. The bloody hands of the terrorist organization Hamas, a group whose stated purpose for being is to kill Jews. This was an act of sheer evil. More than 1,000 civilians slaughtered, not just killed, slaughtered in Israel. Among them, at least 14 American citizens killed. Parents butchered using their bodies to try to protect their children. Stomach-turning reports of babies being killed. Entire families slain. Young people massacred while attending a musical festival to celebrate peace. To celebrate peace. Women raped, assaulted, paraded as trophies. Families hid their fear for hours and hours, desperately trying to keep their children quiet to avoid drawing attention. And thousands of wounded, alive but carrying with them the bullet holes and the shrapnel wounds and the memory of what they endured. You all know these traumas never go away. There's still so many families desperately waiting to hear the fate of their loved ones, not knowing if they're alive or dead or hostages. Infants in their mother's arms, grandparents in wheelchairs, Holocaust survivors abducted and held hostage. Hostages whom Hamas has now threatened to execute in violation of every code of human morality. It's abhorrent. The brutality of Hamas, these bloodthirstiness brings to mind the worst rampages of ISIS. This is terrorism. But sadly, for the Jewish people, it's not new. This attack has brought to the surface painful memories and the scars left by a millennia of anti-Semitism and genocide of the Jewish people. So in this moment, we must be crystal clear. We stand with Israel. We stand with Israel. And we will make sure Israel has what it needs to take care of its citizens, defend itself, and respond to this attack. There's no justification for terrorism. There's no excuse. Hamas does not stand for the Palestinian people's right to dignity and self-determination. Its stated purpose is the annihilation of the state of Israel and the murder of Jewish people. They use Palestinian civilians as human shields. Hamas offers nothing but terror and bloodshed with no regard to who pays the price. The loss of innocent life is heartbreaking. Like every nation in the world, Israel has the right to respond, indeed has a duty to respond to these vicious attacks. I just got off the phone with the third call with Prime Minister Netanyahu, and I told him the United States experience what Israel is experiencing, our response would be swift, decisive, and overwhelming. We also discussed how democracies like Israel and the United States are stronger and more secure when we act according to the rule of law. Terrorists purposely target civilians, kill them. We uphold the laws of war, the law of war. It matters. There's a difference. Today, Americans across the country are praying for all those families that have been ripped apart. A lot of us know how it feels. It leaves a black hole in your chest when you lose family. Feeling like you're being sucked in. The anger, the pain, the sense of hopelessness. This is what they mean by a human tragedy, an atrocity on an appalling scale. We're going to continue to stand united, supporting the people of Israel who are suffering unspeakable losses and opposing the hatred and violence of terrorism. My team has been in near constant communication with our Israeli partners and partners all across the region and the world from the moment this crisis began.
Okay, I've got
We're surging additional military.
I've got it. I don't think I need to hear anymore. I'm not diminishing what he's saying. I just
Powerful.
I get you. Yeah.
I think he was just about to say that he is going to offer military assistance to Israel. So,
well, he's already said whatever they whatever they want, and they have already asked for it. So I think that, and I know you'll have it in your news. If there's anything newsworthy moving forward, I think he. I know, and I can see in the chat a lot of people. Look, he speaks methodically, and he speaks slowly, and he speaks like a soft-spoken older guy. But I think what he says is true, about terrorism and about the slaughter and, these massacres being another level. My words, not his, but I see in the chat, that it brings out what I think are sort of interesting comments related to Biden, he appears weak, because he is soft-spoken. But Lori says, you're also harsh. Undoubtedly, he's been up all night, got off a call, hearing horrible stuff. How the F do you think you'd look after that? Seriously. I mean, I think this is where it's form over substance, sadly. How you come across, how you communicate things, it's important. Yet, how you administer things and how you manage things, that's probably more important. Still, in the moment of communication, you've got a guy out there who, I get it. He reads a little weaker.
It's interesting. I didn't read weak at all. I read passion.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he sounded passionate and emphatic.
He sounded emotional. I wouldn't say passionate. Yeah.
Well, emotion, passion. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but I mean, like he sounded downcast. You know what I mean? But you're right. Maybe it's a different kind of passion. I don't mean to.
That's all right.
But I guess what I'm saying is because he speaks in that, in those low tones, it does bring on the criticisms. But more to the point, like on the specifics, Vivian says this: most people do not want Hamas there. It's worse than Fatah under Arafat when he was in power. Yeah, this is a really interesting point that I was kind of making, that, I'm not saying that everybody, these are my words, I wasn't saying that everybody in Gaza wants Hamas. I don't think they do. I mean, I think Hamas is a terrorist organization that rules the streets there in the same way that Arafat was a mobster and he ruled Palestinians' interests with his own interests ahead. Arafat just squirreled away billions of dollars in Paris and in other places. Arafat took advantage, and Hamas is taking advantage of as well. And I think Vivian is right about that. This from Phineas: the Palestinians only have themselves to blame. They allowed and funded Hamas with U.S. and Israeli humanitarian aid to build bombs and tunnels to kill Jews instead of improving their situation. That states it in a way that's pretty blunt. It is true, though, that the money that has poured into Gaza has not gone to the Gazans, has not gone to the people living in Gaza. It has been used for things that have strengthened Hamas. It is true that tunnels and weaponry have been paid for with money that had been earmarked for other things. So that's not completely wrong at all. But Edward says this: why the F doesn't the U.S. acknowledge the killings of children in Gaza by air raids? It's sickening. That's from Edward. And this is the problem. You have this military operation with civilians who are everywhere in Gaza with nowhere to go. And even as the Israelis warn, we're going to bomb this building before they do it, the Gazans have, what options do they have? I mean, it's very, very disturbing. And yet, what options then do the Israelis have? You cannot countenance this kind of action on the part of Hamas, and Hamas runs Gaza. So where are they going to go? Back to Gaza. I see it as what I'd love to see is some legitimate peace talks. They're going to have to be peace talks anyway. Why can't we get there? And I know many of you would say, well, because Hamas is a terrorist organization, they don't want any peace talks. They want to rub out the last Jewish person from the earth. And they certainly want Israel gone. And how do you negotiate with them?
How do you ever achieve peace in that region between those two factions? I don't think you can.
Show me, this is the Israeli commander talking about how this reminded him the way the terrorists moved from house to house, searching out people to slaughter, reminded him of the pogroms that he heard about from his grandparents, in which, was it Russians mostly, would go from town to town and just, they would kill Jews, they would, can I say the R word? I mean, because that's what's happened here. There's been rape, there's been slaughter, it's been awful. In this most recent Hamas move into Israel. Here you go. Tony, play a little bit of it, if you would, please.
It's not a war. It's not a battlefield. You see the babies, the mother, the fathers in the bedrooms, in the protection rooms, and how the terrorists kill them. It's not a war. It's not a battlefield. It's a massacre. It's a terror activity. So you can look it about on yourself. It's something that I never saw in my life. It's something that we used to imagine as our grandfather and grandmother in the pogrom in Europe and other places. It's not something that happened in the new history, in the near history.
Yeah, this reminds him of the pogroms. It's tough not to be reminded of it as these Hamas terrorists go house to house. They literally used explosives to break open the safe rooms where families were hiding inside. And they massacred and raped and created terror. It's very hard for me to marshal anything but outrage over this. And yet eventually, with hostages weighing in the balance, some sort of reasonable strategy has to emerge. Now, the hostages are not just from Israel. As I mentioned, there are Americans involved.
As a matter of fact, President Biden just said in the speech that 14 Americans are, I believe, have been killed so far.
At least 11 U.S. citizens were killed. I guess the president has updated that to 14. Mm-hmm. But among the deaths, also Argentina, 7 Argentines have been killed. 15 are missing. Canada, 1 dead, 2 are missing. France, 8 French citizens killed, 20 missing. 10 Nepalis died in the attack. 4 Russian nationals are dead, 6 are missing. Thailand, 12 Thai nationals have been killed. The Thai government said it was working to confirm reports that as many as 18 Thai citizens have been killed. British man serving in the Israeli Defense Force killed. 2 Ukrainians have been killed. So, with hostages in the balance, what's the next move? It changes the dynamic in this region. It really does. And this is certainly something that Hamas knew. It's why they took hostages. What else do we have, Tony? Do I have anything? I'm running way late. I want to.
Professor, you gave me the
Professor. I might do Kim's news if it's okay.
Right. Sure, whatever you want to do.
Because I feel as though I'm getting so far behind, and I've got David coming up. But it's, look, to me, it's a front and center thing.
Yep.
It's so heartbreaking, and as I've told you, it's going on against a backdrop of a lot of war. I told you about this yesterday. I mean, this time in history is a time of tremendous instability. And so a stable hand is needed. And you even have significant anti-Semitism rising to the surface here in this country over the last couple of years. And this sort of thing unleashes more of it. So it's immensely disturbing. We'll try to cover it as tastefully as we can here and also give you the different viewpoints as best we can here. Kim's news. I've got David Cay Johnston joining us in the next hour as well. And your comments, during Kim's news, I'll be both listening to Kim and I'll also try to call the comments for anything that I think might forward a conversation. Appreciate you being here. You can smash the like button like a boss.
Smash it
the way
with your iron rod.
Yes, it's a way to show us a little love, and it costs you nothing. And we appreciate you being here. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. This report is sponsored by Coachella Valley Coffee at CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Let's go right back to where Mark left off moments ago. The fighting is indeed raging for a fourth day between Israel and the Palestinian militant group Hamas. This war, so far, has left more than 1,800 people dead, including at least 14 Americans, since Hamas gunmen stormed across Israel's border over the weekend. Israeli warplanes continue to pound the Gaza Strip, which is controlled by Hamas. And President Biden today saying the Hamas attack on Israel is an act of sheer evil. Meanwhile, the FBI is leading the effort to locate Americans impacted by the Hamas attacks. The agency posted on social media that reports of dead, injured, and missing Americans are being treated with the utmost urgency. House Republicans are scrambling to find a new leader following the historic ouster of former Speaker Kevin McCarthy. Republicans meeting tonight, hear from the candidates running to be the next Speaker of the House. So far, House Majority Leader Steve Scalise and Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan are the only lawmakers who have formally entered this race. Former President Trump's New York civil fraud trial is in its sixth day. Former Trump Organization chief financial officer Alan Weisselberg took the witness stand in Manhattan to testify about the overinflated property valuations when he prepared Trump's financial statements. Michael Cohen, Trump's ex-lawyer and fixer, will also testify this week about the work he did for the former president that landed him in prison. And special counsel Jack Smith is looking to hide jurors' identities in the former President Trump Capitol riot election interference trial. Smith pointed to Trump's attacks on court personnel and the particular sensitivities of this case related to public interest. He's also asking a judge in the case to arrange for jurors' very discreet entry and exit from the courthouse. Los Angeles Dodgers legend Steve Garvey is announcing that he is running for the U.S. Senate. Garvey plans to run as a Republican for the seat formerly held by the late Dianne Feinstein. He says it's time Californians had a fresh voice in Washington, D.C. He added some of the issues that he will focus on include diminishing quality of life, rising crime, and substandard education. The 74-year-old one-time National League MVP played ball from 1969 to 1987, 14 years with the Dodgers, 5 with the San Diego Padres.
No, his name recognition is good. His politics, I don't know about. Yeah.
Well, I mean, if everyone's talking about age, right, and getting a young voice in there, he's 74. So, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, but he's a Hall of Fame athlete.
Oh.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the age thing, you know how I feel about the age thing.
It doesn't matter
it just
to
doesn't
me.
matter.
Yeah. An investigation continues.
Vitality, didn't mean to interrupt, but vitality matters. Age doesn't. And you can make arguments about vitality, but let's make them about vitality as opposed to age numbers.
Right, because, you could have the same person who's 74, and one person is, sedentary and not doing much, and another person is still, acting like they're 40 years old. So.
Thank you.
Yeah. An investigation continues into a now deadly incident at the Chinese consulate in San Francisco. Did you hear about this? This is crazy. This happened yesterday when an unidentified suspect rammed his vehicle into the lobby of the Chinese consulate on Geary Boulevard in the city. Responding officers shot at the suspect. He died later at a hospital. It's unclear why the man drove into the consulate in the first place. Big investigation underway.
Jeez.
Several people nursing injuries today after an incident involving a San Francisco cable car. Fire officials say the gripman on the car had to pull the emergency brake yesterday afternoon to avoid hitting a car on the tracks. The abruptness of that stop caused several passengers to fall. A total of 7 people suffered minor injuries in that incident. It's a bad one on the cable car.
I saw that when it broke yesterday. I could not believe it.
Yeah.
So to avoid a traffic accident, he had to yank on the
e-brake.
Brake.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah,
Jeez.
and it stopped so quickly that people went lurching. So, and the cable cars, a lot of people there's no seatbelts on the cable cars, and a lot of people are standing up, hanging onto poles,
That's the fun of it.
It is the fun of it. It's also a little dangerous, right?
Yeah.
The talks aimed at ending the actors' strike will resume tomorrow. SAG-AFTRA and the studios scheduled to continue contract talks Wednesday as the strike approaches 90 days. Hollywood's writers voted to ratify their new agreement on Monday. So maybe if we, can follow suit, we'll see how SAG-AFTRA does. I wanted to end with something fun because the news has just been so, hard on the soul. But the only fun thing I can find is the lottery. So we'll talk about that. There's no winners on Monday night. The next Powerball drawing is for the second largest lottery jackpot in U.S. history. Winning numbers this Wednesday would bring in a prize of $1.73 billion. The lump sum cash payment for that bad boy, $756 million. The latest jackpot, just over $1 billion, was the last jackpot, was won back on July 19th. So it's been that long since we've had a winner. And yeah, be a good one. I'm hoping for a good one. I'm hoping for me to get the good one. That's what I'm hoping for. Let me just, specifically.
We're all hoping.
We're all hoping for that.
Yeah. Do you buy the lottery tickets every week?
No, only when it gets to this point. When I feel like it's going to pop, then I go.
Yeah. I mean, if it's going to pop, you got to
pop.
You got to be on it.
This thing is ready to pop, people.
That's right.
It is.
And we're going to get it.
All right.
You know what else is ready to pop? Coachella Valley Coffee. The bag of coffee in my kitchen has slowly dwindled, and it's time to reorder. Is it time for you to reorder too? CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. You get the exclusive Mark Thompson Show discount. It's 10% off across the board, even on tea and all the other wonderful things offered at CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. You just enter Mark T at the checkout and you get your 10% off. So easy peasy, pumpkin squeezy.
Yeah, it's just funny. Yesterday I had somebody at the house And they said, I've heard so much about this coffee. I want to try it. And then they said, oh, my God, that's just terrific. So I really think you've got to pick up the bean always that's right for you. You know, I like dark, rich beans, but there are tasting notes on all of them. So find the one that's right for you, or as Kim says, go for the tea. But give them a run, because I think they're really worth it. And you get 10% off because you're a listener, viewer of the show. Mark T is the discount code.
Yeah, and it's CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Our thanks to them for sponsoring the newscast. I'm Kim McAllister. This is The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Why are you yelling?
That's not fake. That's real.
It's fantastic.
Who's Mark Thompson?
Hey, which one of you is Mark Thompson?
Yeah. What up, everybody? This is a show that came from the radio originally, and we moved it over to YouTube, and we've been here on YouTube successfully. I mean, successfully enough that we've been able to sustain this show through our audience. Make no mistake about it. Would not be here without the support of the audience. We roll everybody's name at the end of the show for a reason. Those are our Patreon and PayPal supporters. And without that community, we simply go away. Still grateful to everybody who contributes to the show on an ongoing basis, super sticker, super chats, that kind of thing. And here is a super chat. Wow. Thank you for the great show. I love it. Who is it from?
That's Maria Curiel Ponce.
Wow.
Big shout out.
I love the name, too.
Me too.
Sort of musical. Maria Curiel Ponce. Yes. Tax. Is it text or text? I'm sorry, my screen is so
it's
weird
text.
now.
Text.
It's text stand? Come on, man.
Y'all can all go to hell, and I'm going back to Texas.
Well, you can all go to hell. I'm going back to text stand.
Y'all can all go to hell, and I'm going back to Texas.
Been listening for a couple months, and I now mentally evaluate the ding-worthiness of words throughout my day.
Welcome to my life. This is right.
Maybe you should give me $20. Yeah. Big shout out.
Big shout out.
Thank you, Tex. Appreciate that. Very cool. Yeah.
And welcome to the Mark Thompson Show party, Tex.
No. I like this because I just see somebody said, I thought you were annoying, or I found you annoying. Let me go. Wait, hang on a second. Go back to, was that Trevor? Did you change it? I can't see you too well.
Trevor
Maxon. For a 20. Thank you for your show. Thank you for your
big shout out.
Money, Trevor. Yeah. It helps drive the engine. Thank you, Trevor. Now, read this because I can't quite make it out.
Debbie
please.
S. for $20 writes, I found you so annoying when you were on KGO. But
what?
You were the only vestige of my addiction, so I now Patreon. All of you are brilliant, and I adore everything about the show except for the dings that make my dog go crazy. Happy anniversary, Debbie S.
Oh, that's so sweet, Debbie.
Big shout out.
Although I do have a follow-up question, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
I found you so annoying. Put it back up there, please. Can you?
I found you so annoying when you were on KGO. You know, it's a bit of an acquired taste, perhaps.
How dare you? How dare you? Tony, can you believe that?
You know,
Tony.
Sometimes it takes a minute to kind of figure out what the drops are doing. And, you know, you got to ease yourself into the Mark Thompson Show. And then once you get here and you understand the show, we hooked you. You're here.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know what?
I get what she's saying, you know.
I found you so annoying when you were on KGO, but you were the only vestige of my addiction, so I now Patreon. I don't quite understand. Is she saying, look, I don't really like you, but you're the only connection to my... Isn't that what she's saying, Tony?
Yeah. What I'm getting is, well, I didn't like your show, but I really liked KGO. You're the only one still doing.
Thank you. Tony gets it. Kim doesn't get it.
I guess it's good
second
enough.
Sentence, she says, all of you are brilliant. I adore everything about the show.
All of you are brilliant. Tony's brilliant. Albert's brilliant.
Thank you.
Kim's brilliant.
How are you?
No.
No, she wouldn't be on Patreon if she didn't like me.
Right. At the beginning, she was like, what the hell is this Mark Thompson thing about? But now she's in it to win it.
All right. If you say so.
Yeah.
I don't think she really got... Look, she's lovely enough to be a Patreon subscriber. She must be...
And a super sticker person.
And a super sticker person. So I do want to thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And I also want to thank you for giving me a little bit of a riddle that I had to figure out. I'm not quite sure you're on board with me, but
she says I got it. Yeah, I got
it.
It
is
back,
our
Debbie. I'm with you.
It is our 1 year anniversary of going from KGO to YouTube, and we were by no means sure that this would be successful, but it has worked out, and we are growing, and we appreciate you sharing the show across the various platforms that you're part of, and that's helped grow the show. Harry says, yes, Mark, you are an acquired taste. So is good scotch. That's okay. Thank you. Thank you for pulling me out of my emotional dive. Great supporting cast in Kim, Albert, and Tony. They are brilliant. You're pretty good, too. Thank you, and a big shout out. Thank you,
supporting
Harry.
Cast. Don't you know I'm a leading lady over here?
Wow. See, you can't say anything on this show without offending someone.
Cast. I'm telling you.
Lastly, I'll just mention this. And again, if you want to send us a greeting of any kind, a video greeting or an audio greeting or just an email, it's Happy Anniversary MTS for Mark Thompson Show. Happy Anniversary MTS at gmail.com. Dear Mark, Kim, Albert, Tony, Courtney, and John Daly. Wow, that is everybody. I absolutely love, in capital letters, your show. Look forward to it every day. I first started listening to KGO in 1990 when I was a 24-year-old young woman. I had an outside sales job and in the car for a lot of my days, specifically Ron Owens. After so many years, he felt like a father to me. Oh, that's so sweet. I'll tell Ron that you...
What the hell is going on in the United States of America?
I will tell you that Ron is still kicking, still doing great. I talk to him all the time, and I will pass this on to him. When I saw that KGO was going away, I was so sad. After all, I'd been a listener for 32 years. When I heard your idea of creating this show on YouTube, I was so excited and relieved. I learned so much from your show and laugh a lot, too. Thank you so much for all that you do to make your show so successful. Kim Rossline.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Yeah. Very, very cool. Thank you, Kim. So sweet. Appreciate that. And appreciate your support. And without it, we go away. So it's really special that you could take a minute and write such a nice email to us. And I appreciate that you've been listening to KGO and now over to us for as long as you have. We'll try to keep it going as long as we can. Mark annoys me too, says Michael.
Uh-oh.
I usually have the mute button deployed. Can you give me a hand signal when he stops blathering? Many thanks. I am...
What?
I'm taken aback. Please, send me a compliment. Stat. All right, now, Tony, I've got David Cay Johnston waiting, so I'd like to get to him. And I'm wondering if I can go to him, and then we'll do some of the videos as well.
Yep.
And then I'll return to some of the comments regarding what's going on in the Middle East. But I really want to get to David because I think we're neglecting a lot of the other stuff that's going on in this country.
Yeah.
And so I'm so excited that David has been with us. You know, David also, look, he's a Pulitzer Prize winner. David Cay Johnston migrated from the broadcast show on KGO, where he's a regular Tuesday contributor, to this show. And I was hopeful that he would make that trip with us, and he has. And so many of you have specific questions for him. In a way, I like the interactivity of this medium when it comes to David's stuff. And, we break out David's videos separately from our live show. His videos always track higher than anybody else's. So I really appreciate David's contributions to the show because he really helps, I think, lift the show every week. How about it for David Cay Johnston, everybody?
Hello, Mark.
Hello, sir. Thank you for being with us. One of the questions, and I know it's against all this backdrop of the Middle East stuff. We did a lot of that in the first hour. But I'd like to get to something that people have been asking me to ask you. And that is this Trump case, and it's still going on in a big, big way, where he values his properties sort of out of the air. I mean, where he literally just picks, and you've heard Michael Cohen talk about this, you've heard, and Trump, it's been demonstrated, has just done this, create value right out of his head as to what his assets are in terms of these properties and then borrowing against it. The question I'm getting, I've gotten like 5 emails to ask you, how is this possible? And you've written books about this stuff. How is it possible that those with high net worth or those in this world of high-end real estate can do that with utter impunity?
Well, because of the way we fail to regulate the banking system, and banking regulation is not something new. There's proto-banking regulation in Hammurabi's code, which is from almost 4,000 years ago. And it's because of the fee structure and the way bankers get paid. After all, if you're the bank executive who arranges a multi-$100 million loan to someone who perhaps doesn't really qualify, wouldn't qualify if it were a mortgage for someone on a smaller scale, you're going to collect a tremendous fee. So it creates these enormous incentives because after all, it's not your money. And if the loan goes sour, the bank doesn't come to you and make you pay up. So there's 2 problems. The failure to properly regulate banks, which is not a new or unknown phenomenon of how to do this. And the second is these fee structures that encourage this kind of behavior. And the reason it should matter, even if the loan is paid back, is that banks don't have an infinite capacity to loan money. The size of what's known in banking as their footings has a big role to play in the size of their loan package. And the kinds of loans Trump took out are not the kind that a bank makes and then sells into the federally supervised Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac system. They may be syndicated, that is, a lot of banks may buy a piece of it, but it's a different and separate system. And so if Donald Trump gets a loan that he shouldn't get or gets a loan for more than he should get, it means somebody else didn't get a loan or didn't get as good terms as a loan. This is not a victimless crime, but it is a subtly victimhood crime.
And is it common in high-end real estate?
Well, not to the extent that Donald does this. And I would here take you back to think about your own house. So my house here in Rochester, New York, Zillow says it's worth, I think, $450,000. So if I go to the bank and want a mortgage and try to persuade them it's worth $475 or maybe $500, or persuade the local tax authorities it's really only worth $400, we're in a reasonably narrow range here. If I go, however, to the bank and say, oh, I want a $5 million loan against my house, and here are these documents that say it's worth $5 million. Pay no attention to the statement on the front that says these are not done according to generally accepted accounting principles. That's fraud. That's just outright fraud. So there's a range here where you're being a little aggressive one way or the other, but there's Donald Trump range. So when he says his apartment in Trump Tower, which is 58 stories, not as he says 68, is 30,000 plus square feet when it's really about 10,000, that's fraud. When he says his Silver Springs mansion and grounds in Westchester County, just outside Manhattan, are worth $291 million. The highest appraisal on them is about $30 million, a tenth as much. And that's based on the assumption that he could carve it up and sell off 8 sites for mansions. And the local authorities have said, no, you may never cut this up. This is the size of this property, end of discussion, which means it's worth a lot less than $30 million. Now we're just talking flat out fraud.
But the banks have to look the other way. As you say, they're incentivized along the way to okay it. It reminds me of the high-end art world where those appraisers are essentially incentivized to appraise things higher. Aren't there appraisers within this world that are held to account if something, don't they have comps the way that you use your house as an example? I mean, they have to find comps usually, don't they?
Yes. You look for comparable properties if you live in a neighborhood like mine where every house was built by a different builder over a 50-year period, they're not exactly comparable. This many square feet, this many bedrooms, this style, the kind of style house I have is worth less than a colonial, for example. But also, a little history lesson here. Back around 2005 or 6, 11,000 mortgage appraisers, about a third of all mortgage appraisers, wrote to the FBI and said, we're not getting business because we won't give dishonest appraisals. We are not inflating the values of appraisals as demanded by Countrywide down in Ventura and other banks that were in the business of making loans that were no good, that sank the economy. And the FBI did nothing. In fact, what the FBI did back then was it partnered with the very banks that were ripping off people and messing up the economy. And the FBI put out a statement, which I wrote about in one of my economics books, in which it said that America was suffering from two kinds of bank fraud. One was people buying houses they really couldn't afford by lying about them, and the other was some other consumer corrupt act. They gave no thought at all, and when I called them, they were like, are you nuts? To the idea that maybe the bankers themselves were the crooks. And that's what Bill Black wrote. He was the just mid-level banking regulator in San Francisco who uncovered the savings and loan scandal 30-some years ago, resulted in over 3,000 indictments. More than 800 senior banking officials, not little small fry, but CEOs and other high-level banking officials went to prison because of Bill. And Bill later went and got a doctoral degree in criminology and wrote a book, The Best Way to Rob a Bank is to Own One. And he came up with this brilliant new theory in criminology. He's actually, his doctoral degree is not in sociology, it's in a subset, criminology. And that was what he called control fraud. So, the CEO of the company you're taught in economics and business school is the agent of the shareholders and directors, and he or she's supposed to run the company in their interest. And they'll, pad their expenses and, get themselves a nicer jet and things like that. But overall, they're looking out for the shareholders. In control fraud, it's, oh no, we're here to loot the place and we're going to loot it as fast and best we can. And when it collapses, if we've kept it alive long enough, say more than 3 years, the market turned on us. There was nothing we could do.
Wow.
Best way to rob a bank, own one.
What a game. What a racket.
Yeah. And the problem is that this also encourages honest bankers to misbehave. When government doesn't enforce the rules, not only are the consumers losers, but so are honest business people. And most business people are not corrupt. They're not dishonest. Angela Mazzillo, who somehow escaped prosecution and whose federal fines of like $600 million were paid for by insurance bought by the shareholders of the place that he looted, Countrywide, he walked away basically unscathed. Mnuchin, the Treasury Secretary under Trump, who was infamous for foreclosing on people over, this littlest thing to get a hold of their houses. Nothing happened to him. He became Treasury Secretary of the United States. And we have a real fundamental problem with not enforcing and not putting up enough money for white-collar crime enforcement. And then we've made many white-collar crimes now beyond the scope of prosecution because of Supreme Court decisions that have narrowed, what's a white-collar crime.
I see. Could you expand on that? Because that's intriguing.
The most notorious case involved the governor of Virginia, McDonald, and his wife. And there was a guy who had a business in Virginia for which he needed favors from the state to prosper. And he gave the governor's wife a shopping trip to Manhattan that cost, I think it was $250,000. He provided them with the use, not the ownership, of a car like a Ferrari, a very, very expensive sports car, and other favors, and was convicted of corruption, dishonest services. And the Supreme Court threw that out. And essentially the Supreme Court said, so long as you don't say, well, listen, if you do this specific official act, I will give you this gift, it's not corruption. Well, that's nonsense. I mean, does somebody walk up to you who wants to bribe you and say, listen, do this act, I'll do that? No, it's more like, I really could use your help. And by the way, wouldn't you love to have the use of my private jet for the week? It's not a quid pro quo. And there's a very good book called Corruption in America by Zephyr Teachout. Very unusual name, Zephyr Teachout. She is a professor of law here in New York at, I think, Fordham. And she starts off with the scandal of a bejeweled snuff box, tobacco you put up your nose, that the King of France gave to our ambassador, Benjamin Franklin. And this was like a major national scandal because the framers of our Constitution, they understood individual venality will occur. There will be people who are corrupt. They were concerned about institutional corruption. And our Supreme Court has basically authorized institutional corruption. You just got to do it with a wink and a nod, and you can get away with it.
Because you're saying unless there's a quid pro quo, demonstrably quid pro quo, then the court allows it.
Yep, and it's horrible. So you combine that with fee structures that encourage dishonest loans, and add to that a lack of enforcement. That's one of the things you almost never read in the news. Well, Congress passed a new law to crack down on X. Oh yeah, well, how many people did they hire? Years ago, I was studying unpaid wages. The Old Testament has a lot of talk about the need to pay wages to your workers. And it turns out that there was a trial in ancient Egypt around 1450 before the Common Era, so more than 3,000 years ago, by a guy who said he didn't get paid. And we have a whole record of this trial. And today we have what are called wage and hour courts. Your boss doesn't pay you, you can go to the state government and they will look into this. We had more federal labor inspectors in 1940, when there were only about 100 million Americans, than we do today with 330 million Americans. And lo and behold, what's one of the most rampant things going on, not in the places you and I work in, which are known as primary employment, but in the people who have marginal jobs. They're getting ripped off left and right. And there's no enforcement because there's not enough inspectors to go deal with it. And so some employers, those employers inclined to be dishonest, feel emboldened.
So at the top and at the bottom, the enforcement is quite lax.
Right. And everybody in between, we get the bill.
Yeah, we get the bill. And, it's pointed out in the chat as well that, these payoffs of politicians and the enforcement mechanisms and whether or not to, bring some kind of legal action is oftentimes influenced by donations of, you've spoken about this, PG&E is mentioned, and
The incentive system for politicians is just awful. It's been made much worse by the post-Watergate reforms. And the reality is that if you're a congressman or a congresswoman or a senator, your real constituency is your donors. It's not John Q. Citizen. Those are the people who matter. I had some people in my backyard almost 25 years ago one summer evening, and I remarked that big donors can get their congressperson on speed dial, but if you ask your congressperson, I'd like 5 minutes with you next time you're in town, you probably can't get it. Whereupon one of my guests, a very successful businessman, flips open his phone. That's how far back this was, flip phones, pushes one button and says, "Oh, Louise, how you doing?" Who was our local congresswoman, a wonderful congresswoman, but he had her on speed dial.
And therein the difference. That's great. Yeah. Hey, let me ask you, you mentioned politicians, and there's a pretty titanic, potentially, change in, I'm not unanticipated, but pretty big nonetheless, change in the presidential race as RFK Jr. has officially declared as an independent that he will run for president. I think it will be destabilizing, but I'm curious to know your take on that and where you think he'll take votes. Will he take, it's not purely Democrats who he'll take votes from, it wouldn't seem.
Third-party candidates have again and again been spoilers. If Ross Perot had not run in 92, Bill Clinton would not have become president. A lot of people believe that Ralph Nader cost Al Gore the election in 2000, but there's some very good political science research by people who set out to prove that says, nah, actually, it's not true. It's an urban legend. But it certainly was not helpful that Ralph ran. And what we're seeing in politicians these days is more and more crazy people running. And Robert F. Kennedy, if you listen to the thing, Jr., if you listen to the things he's been saying, he's in the nutball caucus. His ideas about vaccines alone. His ideas about vaccines alone just tell you that he's nuts. And if you look at his life circumstances as he grew up, it's kind of easy to understand why he might end up being the kind of nutcase that he is. But this is not a good thing. Parties used to enforce discipline, and parties saw to it that the people who ran were sort of widely agreed upon competent people to be in the White House. You didn't have to like Coolidge or Hoover or FDR, but nobody thought they were incompetent. And now we have all sorts of people running they're just flat out, they're incompetent. They have no business being in political office.
Well, you have a new phenomenon too, David, it would seem, which is associated with, it takes name recognition to another level. They've always talked about name recognition in relation to presidential runs or to any kind of political office. Yep. But the idea somehow that you're a brand, you know what I mean? That many of the things that these legislators do are associated with burnishing their brand. I think that has actually gotten in the way of getting things done legislatively. You find an issue, maybe it's women's reproductive rights, maybe it's aid to Ukraine, and you make it the thing that you want to shut the government down or you want to shut military promotions down. And in so doing, you, I think, rise to another level when it comes to your brand. And I feel like the RFK Jr. brand has a degree of popularity and traction that really could push this race one way or another.
Oh, no, I think there's the potential, if he doesn't flame out, for real difficulty, probably much more for the Democrats than the Republicans. Branding is a very important issue. My late brother used to say, have you ever noticed that every shampoo bottle is different? And I said, yeah. And he said, well, it's because you go shopping and you don't have to think, my wife uses this brand in the dry hair version. You just, it's that shaped bottle with the green cap, not the pink cap.
Oh, that's clever. Actually, I never thought of that.
My brother was a security guard and a ditch digger, but he had some great insights.
Yeah.
And the same thing applies here in politics. People, you don't know these people. You don't know me or you or the people you see on the CBS Evening News. You know what you see in this little box or hear over the air. And you really have to pay attention to people's policies. But unfortunately, a lot of people vote on the principle of, gee, I would much rather have a beer with George W. Bush than Al Gore. Me included, by the way. But that doesn't make one man qualified and the other not. It has nothing to do with that. And if we get cynical, all politicians are corrupt, all bankers are corrupt, then we don't get anywhere. We need to recognize that most people try to do the right thing within some reasonable grounds. And we really need to pay attention to the outliers like Donald Trump, R.F. Kennedy, and Lauren Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene, Matt Gaetz. Pay attention to these people and say, how is it that they're in office? And try to get a better quality of people drawn into public service.
It's sad because I feel as though public service is being informed now by a kind of radicalism that scares people. We've talked about it just in the course of speaking about poll workers and those who are public servants. All of a sudden it's become a dangerous thing. It's a scary time in the politics of America. But to your point, I mean, it seems as though competence is not something that even makes sort of the top three in terms of things that you evaluate. I mean, Trump's a classic example, you know.
Yeah, we had a flood in our basement from a broken water pipe just now, finally after a month getting all fixed. And I had a tradesman in my house this morning. He's a liberal Democrat. And he said to me, you know, Donald Trump's a terrible person and he terrible things, but I really loved his policies. And I go, what policies? And, you know, he says, well, gas prices, you know, they were down at $2.20 a gallon. And I went, yeah, there was a pandemic on. People were dying. People weren't driving as much. Well, but I want to get that back. By the way, Putin invaded Ukraine. Yeah, but Joe Biden, higher gas prices. We need to develop a politics in this country like I was in Europe for the last 4 weeks in 6 countries. And a politics that you have there is much more sophisticated. You can have a much better conversation with a random waiter at a sidewalk cafe in Paris or Stockholm than with your average American with a college degree.
Wow.
So there is one thing I want to make sure we cover today, Mark.
Yes, sir, please.
It came out, I don't know, 10 days ago that Donald Trump told an Australian businessman, a billionaire, nuclear secrets, how close American submarines can get to Russian submarines and the Russians cannot detect them. And the number of missiles and payloads of the boomers, the big nuclear submarines, not the attack submarines, what they carry, and apparently other things, but those were the 2 highlights. These are incredibly super secret things. The technology that our government has developed to create propellers for nuclear submarines so they don't have bubbles and make any noise. We have spent unbelievable sums of money over the last 60 years refining that technology. And Donald Trump shot his mouth off about it. And the guy he spoke to then, of course, went on and told a whole bunch of other people. I want to talk about treason. You can't commit treason because we're not at war, but the concept of being treasonous is perfectly valid. And this goes to a point I didn't want to make until now when we have some clear evidence of this. And that is Donald Trump committed crimes against our national security that you're never going to hear about and will never be prosecuted, because to do so would require exposing the information widely, and we can't do that. But if you think this was a one-off, where just one time Donald Trump shot his mouth off to impress somebody, an Australian businessman, with his secret knowledge from being president, you're being incredibly naive. Donald Trump, because he has no controls and he has no ethical standards, he has no, he doesn't think anything wrong when he was plying a 12-year-old girl with liquor and limousines and hotel rooms so she'd gamble because she was rich, and as well 13 and 14-year-olds. He sees nothing wrong with this. There's much more than we will know, perhaps forever, and certainly not in the lifetimes of our grandchildren, about what Trump did shooting off his mouth.
Well, this is really intriguing, David, and I know we only have a minute or so left, but I wonder if you can just follow with then how is anything protected if when things that should be so dearly protected are protected after the fact, and you can't hold those who revealed them to account? I mean,
well, this is one of the reasons that I think in the case of Donald, it is imperative that we put him behind bars. He gets tried and convicted and put behind bars so that he can't continue to do these things. But we need to be very concerned about other politicians who might do that. And Donald is pretty much a unique case in terms of no accountability, no understanding, and no moral character at all. None. Doesn't exist. Empty vessel. But I would worry a great deal about a number of other people if they got into office, lying and giving away secrets. It just came out in court that the DeSantis administration in Florida, which insisted that it had no data on COVID deaths and medical practice, had tons of it. They just lied and hid. 87,000 people died, probably about 80,000 of them unnecessarily because of that. And so we need to have a culture of the kind that the framers sought and Zephyr Teachout wrote about in her book, Corruption, that holds you to a high standard of behavior. And, you know, you may not like George W. Bush or Barack Obama or Bill Clinton, but none of them went around giving away our secrets just to impress somebody with what they knew.
Yeah, I mean, certainly that's true. I feel it's incumbent upon the media, but the media has become so fractured and siloed that I know it's difficult to get this out. But I feel this voracious appetite that the news cycle has sort of loses this. I mean,
yeah, especially when it's all about one issue. I mean, right now, Donald Trump's civil trial is still going on. Try to find a news story about it. There are reporters in the courtroom. It's all the war in the Middle East, which I don't want to get into because I don't know.
No, I get it, and I think that will take up the news cycle for a while. But I also think that it's not only his fraud trial, but as you suggest, he's done this other thing that has become orphaned in all of this because of we've moved on to, as you say, these other things. I mean, maybe there's an inevitability to that, but I would just love to see the media step up a little bit more prominently in that way.
Well, don't be cynical. That's my number one thing is, don't be cynical. It doesn't get you anywhere. Doesn't get
right, and it also gets you into some nasty generalities of the sort that you were just referencing before, like, oh, they're all corrupt, or oh, it's all whatever. The minute you say, there are degrees of everything, and there are ways to change things. I've kept you over time. Thank you, David. So appreciate your contributions, and look forward to the next one.
Talk to you next week.
David Cay Johnston, yeah. Wow, good stuff.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Tony, do you have anything that I feel like on our anniversary week I wanted to share? Is there a video? You got a video? No?
Oh,
nothing.
Sorry,
Maybe rally that for after Kim's news. I didn't mean to spring it on you. So we'll do that after Kim's news. Smash the like button like a boss. A simple thumbs up. We've discovered today through
iron rod.
Some listener comments that I'm an acquired taste.
Like a fine wine,
Yeah, I don't know. I've been kind of chastened a bit today by my audience.
But you see, once you acquire the taste, you can't give it up.
No. I do have a special treat for listeners, but I want to know whether I should have you want the special treat in the next half hour? A visit from Brett Burkhart?
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Brett in a visit in the next half hour.
Why are you picking on Brett?
One of the original, KGO voices to be on our show. He will be here in the next half hour. So smash the like button, Kim's news, and as I say, we'll roll into some Brett next. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. President Biden is calling the attacks by Hamas on Israel an act of sheer...
Sayonara, sucker!
What? Sorry, that was my elbow. I leaned against something during a very serious story. I apologize.
You did, yeah.
Now I hate myself.
Now
All
you
right.
find yourself annoying, too.
Hang on a second. Hold on.
I'm going to re-rack it, yeah. On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. President Biden is calling the attacks by Hamas on Israel an act of sheer evil. While speaking from the White House, the president said more than 1,000 civilians have been slaughtered in Israel since Saturday, when the terrorist group launched a surprise attack, including at least 14 American citizens killed. American citizens are also among those being held hostage by Hamas. The president reaffirmed U.S. support for Israel and said his administration is working to surge additional military assistance to the country. When Congress returns, President Biden plans to ask lawmakers to take urgent action on the national security requirements of critical U.S. allies. An American journalist detained in Russia will remain in jail through at least November Evan Gershkovich lost an appeal to be released from the Moscow jail on espionage charges. The Wall Street Journal reporter was detained back in March. A former Trump Organization official will take the witness stand today in the former president's civil fraud trial in New York. Alan Weisselberg, who is also a defendant, is expected to say he was just following his longtime boss's orders when he signed off on phony sky-high property valuations when he prepared Trump's financial statements. Trump not expected to show up in court this week. The fraud trial of FTX co-founder Sam Bankman-Fried resumes today. Prosecutors say Bankman-Fried defrauded customers of his digital currency exchange FTX and his cryptocurrency hedge fund. If found guilty, the 31-year-old faces more than 100 years in federal prison. A growing partisan fight emerging now over a push to expand internet access on public school buses. What won't we fight over? The FCC's Democratic chairwoman wants school buses to have discounted access to Wi-Fi to help close the homework gap. Republicans in the House and Senate Commerce Committees are pushing back, saying they're concerned about subsidizing children's unsupervised internet access to social media sites like TikTok and Instagram. Americans less enthused now about corporations involving themselves in advocacy for social issues than last year. A new report from the Public Affairs Council shows 57% of people surveyed say they support companies trying to engage politically. That's down from 66% in 2022. There's a line drawn between political parties, though, with Democrats more likely than Republicans to say corporations should be involved in issues involving discrimination on the basis of race or gender. More than 1,000 birds are dead after crashing into the same building in Chicago. Experts say it was due to difficult weather over migration season and the absence of bird-friendly building measures. The Chicago Field Museum collected the dead birds that flew into the McCormick Place Lakeside Center. And lastly, the family of the late John Steinbeck is auctioning off some of the literary legend's personal items. About $700,000 worth of personal items like diaries, manuscripts, are all going up for auction in New York. Among the items up for auction, the first manuscript for Steinbeck's very first novel, A Cup of Gold. This report is sponsored by you, which means we do rely on you to support the show. Find us at themarkthompsonshow.com, themarkthompsonshow.com, and you'll find the Patreon, the PayPal links, and so much more. I'm Kim McAllister on The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Thompson.
Hey, which one of you is Mark Thompson?
The Mark Thompson Show.
I'm pretty excited. How about it for Brett Burkhart? Come on. Yes. The 1-year anniversary brings them all back around.
Oh, yeah. Happy anniversary.
Thank you, Brett. Thank you. We had great times at KGO Radio, of course, you and I. I built you up from the raw Brett, the guy who was just going in, doing the little... I know, I'm talking about myself right now because I want to remind Brett how important I am. How dare you? They're telling me that I should just let you speak. That's not my style, as you know.
Do you know who I am?
Thank you.
I'm kind of a big
I want to
deal.
remind Brett who I am. So I built you up from this guy who was just doing news breaks into a full-blown personality. And what do? You smartly, I might add, blast out of KGO right before the place disintegrates, and you go to KCBS, and congratulations. That's my recapitulation of events. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well, and I must say that last week was a heck of a news week, and I was dipping into the Mark Thompson School of Radio last week when we had to ad-lib for half-hour periods of time during the Feinstein Memorial at City Hall. And, of course, we had Fleet Week. There were so many things going on. Of course, the McCarthy exit interview. So there were so many instances where I was channeling my inner Mark Thompson. And, you taught me so much about just being myself and jumping off the script now and then. So,
well, you are. I think you're a magical kind of personality that does have knowledge of so many things. And my take on you was always just don't get too up into your head about anything. Just let it run. And you are great when you let. I just think it's all in there, and you're really so gifted. And as a broadcaster, you're so talented. So it's cool to see you having landed so well. And in truth, you landed. You left KGO on your own, and you landed across the way with a really nice contract and a good deal. And I mean, you really were like maybe one of the last guys out of KGO to really, move up, if I can put it that way. So
I feel thank you. I feel so fortunate to be there. And the timing just was amazing. And the interesting thing is it's really full circle for me because my boss over at KCBS is married to one of my best friends who I've known since college, and he's the one who got me into news radio. I was just a light 95 FM playing the 70s and 80s hits, Whitney Houston and all that, and the sister station was News Talk 1060. And so he said, why don't you come over here and do news, because DJs are a dime a dozen. And so I took his advice, and his wife ended up hiring me in a dream job to work with Patty Rising in the afternoons. And it's just amazing.
Right. That's right. So that's your regular thing now, right, Brett?
Yeah. It's never been announced on email, which has always been kind of weird, but I just celebrated my year anniversary as well at KCBS. And Patty and I are just as good friends as we are coworkers. And it's so fun getting to know her, because I listened to her for years, as so many people did. And I can't believe I met so many people over at KCBS, but I never had met Patty. And so we hit it off right away. It was really fun.
So let me ask you a question about San Francisco, because we talk a lot about the city and the Bay Area and problems and challenges, and many of the challenges that San Francisco and the Bay Area face, many of them are those that are faced by many big cities right now. I mean, I think San Francisco gets a cheap shot kind of media play, but I also feel as though there's a lot wrong, in San Francisco. So maybe it's appropriate. But I'm long ramp up to just ask you, what's your take on the city that changes the future? I mean, you report on it every day, and you are in it every day.
And we do have to be careful to balance that story, because it does get a little negative in the headlines. And I feel as though there are some news outlets that tend to focus on the negative instead of the positives. There have been a lot of positives. I mean, they're opening up these pop-up shops in the financial district, which is fantastic. These are businesses that wouldn't normally be able to buy any space, and the incentives that they're offering to fill some of these empty storefronts is pretty amazing. And like you said, every big Bay Area city has these issues with the homeless, with the break-ins and what have you. I mean, just look at Oakland, look at San Jose. It's unfortunate. I will say that they're doing a lot in the fentanyl crisis in San Francisco, which is really encouraging. They brought in the National Guard. They're doing behind-the-scenes investigating, and they're making a ton of arrests. I haven't seen the numbers yet to correlate whether that's reduced the number of deaths, but they are making the arrests, and they're out in force, along with the CHP helping the San Francisco Police Department. So that's some positives. And I tweet a picture of San Francisco in the early morning hours, because that's the most beautiful time in the city, in my opinion, and nobody gets to see it. And there's so many beautiful lights reflecting off the bay. And so I try to promote it in that way, because I think people tend to forget about the beauty of the place.
Well, it is a stunningly beautiful city. I'd say arguably one of the most beautiful cities in the world. And you can't lose that. I mean, there is, I get it. There's smash and grabs going on 500 feet away, but I'm telling you that vista that and congrats on the Mark Thompson show mug, by the way. That's so strong, yes. But the vistas are spectacular, and the place has a great energy. I'm sorry, it still has it. I mean, I was just there 2 weeks ago, And so it's a special place still, which, by the way, only makes it more heartbreaking to see these issues and to think of it as a place where people don't want to go now. They don't want to have their conventions. They're worried. Their retailers pulling out. Now, retailers are pulling out for a lot of reasons, and they're hanging it on the hook of San Francisco being dangerous. And they actually just have a different business model now for a lot of these retail establishments. I'm talking about the Walgreens of the world, et cetera. But anyway, to your point, Brett, it's a very special place, and it remains a special place, which is why it's a bit of a heartbreak.
And for me, and I know for you too, because you spent so many years reporting weather on Cron 4 on the streets, living in San Francisco. And I will say not only my dad grew up in the Richmond district of San Francisco, but my grandfather grew up in San Francisco. My grandfather was, he had a stuttering problem. And here's why. And this is appropriate because we just said goodbye to Dianne Feinstein, who saved the cable cars. And my grandfather, when he was little, saw his mom dragged by a cable car.
Oh my God.
From that moment on, he had a stuttering problem. And I always remember him with a stuttering problem. And that was the reason why, was because the San Francisco cable car. Unfortunately, his mom survived, but it didn't leave him with a speech impediment. And so whenever I see that, that's kind of my hometown. I grew up in the South Bay, but we spent a lot of time traveling to the city, and my dad taking me to his old haunts. And yeah, there's a special place in my heart for the city. And I tell you, whenever I drive across that Bay Bridge and see the skyline, sans the traffic, it's breathtaking. And
sometimes with the traffic, you have a chance to take in the skyline longer than you want to take it in. Hey, Brett, we love you. You know, I felt a real bond and special chemistry with you during the time we were together at KGO. And I love that we're still in touch. And I love that you're doing so well. And quick update on family, and I'll let you go.
We have been an empty nester now for about a year. And man, was that an adjustment. The house seems so empty. But what I did was I splurged and installed a Sonos music system, and it sure makes the house not feel so empty anymore. But yeah, the kids are doing.
So it's just filled with that hip hop music that you used to play in the studio? Is that what you're telling me? Wow.
I do about, the K-pop moments and all of that stuff.
No, neighbors haven't complained yet about the noise. You're okay. All right.
Not yet.
You will say what?
There are people I work with who love your show, who tune in whenever they can on YouTube, and they were excited that you were going to have me on again. And I am appreciative to have your friendship.
Why can't we get some of those people on instead of you? Is what I would say. No, I love you, but I would love to. I'm sorry, I can't let any moment sit like that. You're so lovely to mention that, and look, I didn't know this experiment would work. I just knew that we needed to do something, that we had something, that we'd worked hard on something. I worked very hard on that show that we did.
I know you did.
I built franchises and tried stuff. We were always trying. You couldn't say we weren't, we were phoning it in, man. We were trying things all the time. And,
I know.
And so I just wanted to try it over here on YouTube because I thought we had some momentum, and that momentum has carried us for a year, and our audience has supported us, and we're completely, audience supported. So, but I look back on the time I spent with you at KGO so fondly. You're just terrific, and I love that we're still in touch, as I say.
Me too.
Thanks for being here, pal.
Thank you. Love you, man.
Okay, love you back. Thank you. Brett Burkhart, everybody. Yeah, take you out with some canned applause, Brett. See you, man. Bye-bye.
See you.
The Mark Thompson Show. The Mark Thompson Show.
It was great. I loved it.
How would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir.
Morning.
You cannot say you love your country.
Where are my weed smokers at?
Stay at home and get baked.
Wow, I don't know what that I don't know. Tony, thank you. Tony's on board today. He's riding. If you got a problem with anything today, technically, blame Tony.
Thanks, Tony.
Yeah. Kim is writing the news.
Kim, how are you?
A lot going on. If you got anything problem with the news, take it up with Kim. Okay. I'm just an innocent bystander here today. How about Janet? Are you kidding me?
Wow.
Wow. I mean, this is sort of a major announcement. On our anniversary week. Happy anniversary, says Janet R. Love you all. Mark, Kim, Tony, Albert, Courtney, and original super producer, John Daly. You make every weekday great. So glad to have followed you over from KGO. Janet R. Come on. That is $100. What's that, Kim?
I met her the other day.
Oh.
She was in Petaluma, so we coordinated just a quick hug and hello, and it was such a treat to meet her. She's really kind.
Well, she's lovely and super kind to donate to that degree and to keep us going. We need...
I'm not going to cry! I'm not going to cry!
I know, but it is super cry territory. Wow. What a great, generous contribution. Thank you, Janet. And it's so cool that you met Kim.
Yeah.
Tony, is Kim's level down or something? Why does she sound so low all of a sudden? No? No problem on your end? No?
I don't know yet.
I don't know.
I haven't heard
Everybody
enough.
sounds low to me.
Yeah, you're a little low. Let me fix it.
It happened during the Burkhart interview.
Yeah, I can't hear her at all.
I mean, I don't want to criticize Brett or anything, but...
I don't want to criticize Tony, but, it's been going on for a couple minutes now.
Thanks, Tony.
And Tony, of course, just got in.
It's maxed out, so that's all I can do.
It's maxed out, Kim, so crank yourself up. But big shout out to Janet.
Big shout out.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
very,
really
very cool.
kind.
I have an email. I don't mean to extend this, but can I? I have sort of a moving email on our anniversary week. You'll allow us to indulge a little bit.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Congrats on 1 year, says Sally. I feel like she said, I was crushed a year ago when KGO suddenly changed formats. I feel like I need some, not sad music, but like some emotional music. Hang on a
That'd
second.
be good, I think. Do we have that?
What do I have?
We have some emotional music.
I might have it.
We have a passion reel.
Stand by. I feel it's important. These are elements I need. I think I can take care of it in one move. Stand by. No, maybe not. And I thought I had it, but I guess I don't.
No. No violins. There's no
I had it, but for some reason it's not playing through.
orchestra. There's no.
No. I blame, let me see. Tony. I blame Tony.
Are you playing this on the laptop?
Yeah.
Thanks, Tony.
Yeah. I don't understand the problem, Tony. Well, hang on a second. Let me...
415 Steve.
$9.99. Great to hear from Brett. Class act. Congrats on the first year from 415 Steve. Thank you, 415 Steve.
Big shout out.
Yeah, big shout out. By the way, speaking of which, do you have any of the videos that were sent in, Tony, that I pushed to you? Do you want to run one of those? There we go. How about this? This is a cool video. Oh, I don't know. I've not seen this video. Hold, stop. I've not seen it. So we don't. So this is a hot roll. You haven't seen it either, Tony?
Big shout out.
Okay, go ahead and run it.
Yeah, I saw it. I watched it. I make sure it wasn't like, I make sure it was actually
Okay, go
nice.
ahead. Go ahead.
It's actually
Sorry.
nice.
Yeah.
Hey there. I've got 3 questions for you. First of all, who the hell's Mark Thompson? Second, why does he think he's such a big deal? And third, who would ever spend money on merchandise from the guy? But in all seriousness, happy anniversary, and thank you for doing such a great job, you guys. Take care.
That is really, really cool. And might I say...
Thank you.
Yeah.
Who is that?
So who is that, Tony?
Thanks, Tony.
Oh my God, dude!
It just says
It just
says
we
the
even
file
talked
name.
about
It didn't have a name on the file.
I even talked.
Whoever you are, great video.
No,
Love
I'll
your
find
shirt.
it.
Very nice
You're
light
awesome.
rig.
Outrageous. God. Well, it's not Susan. She sent something. I think it could be Tom. I believe that's Tom. It's Tom N. Thank you. Yes, thank you. Tom N. Thank you, Tom N., for that very cool shout out. Hope this makes it through. He says, thanks for a great year, everyone. Appreciate that, Tom. Yes. Very cool. Well,
what in the world are you doing?
I don't know. And now to the emotional email that I received. Well, this is interesting, Tony. For some reason, this particular file is not playing. I don't know. These particular files are not playing.
Is it playing in a different audio player or something, maybe?
No, it's right in the same. It's played out a twisted wave, the same way everything else is. No,
Okay.
interesting.
Good to know.
I don't know. Like,
I'll
in
add it
other
to the
words,
list of bugs.
that's Kim, and hers played, but yeah, anyway. So here we go. Mark, Kim, Albert, and Tony, 1 year ago, I was crushed when KGO suddenly changed formats and literally turned you off the air. I didn't know how I would survive my days without all of you. I've been working at home since March of 2020 and listening to KGO all day long. I was really addicted to every host and co-host. Wow. Again, I wish we could just keep this about me and not mention the other hosts and co-hosts, but all right, I will continue. I grew up in the Bay Area, so this is not the first time I was crushed by KGO. I hated when any great host was cut or moved on, like Gene Burns, Gil Gross, Ed Baxter, Ron Owens, and Chip Franklin, just to name a few. I may not comment during the shows, but I'm always listening while I'm working. This summer, when I was on vacation in Europe, I was really missing some U.S. news and missing you guys. It was so cool that I could listen to the podcast and hear about what was happening over there. This made me realize how much I depend on you to get through my days. So I just started contributing regularly through Patreon to keep things going and to help keep this going. I'm also going to send a special gift on your anniversary this Thursday. Isn't that nice? Really nice. I'm so glad you found this new format and are doing so great. There's never been anything like this.
There's never been anything like this.
Congratulations on 1 year. Here's to many more. I love you all, but especially Kim. Because she's the glue that holds it all together. Wow.
Kim, how are you?
Sally C. P.S. I am loving Coachella Valley coffee.
Nice.
I love that.
Thank you, Sally. What a great message.
That is really, really cool. And she just became a Patreon member for $20 a month. Isn't that great? That's really, that's terrific. And a big shout out.
Big shout out.
Yeah, thank you, Sally. Thank you, Tom, for that video message, and Sally for that written message. And if you have any kind of message on our anniversary, you can send it to happyanniversarymts@gmail.com. happyanniversarymts@gmail.com. We have messages from tomorrow. Raj Mathai sent us a message. How about that? The OG of the show from NBC Bay Area. Also a very cool message from a listener. And
they are kind of a big deal.
There are a couple more videos as well. So I'm looking forward to tomorrow where we can we'll get some of that stuff included in our normal mix. I did a lot on this is Mr. 54. Is that what that is?
Yeah.
Mr. 54 with a $10 super sticker.
Big shout out.
Happy anniversary to my wife. I know she's listening. We married on 10/10. So you get a 10 for being a 10 of a show. I get it. Happy anniversary to you all as well. Mr. 54, best wishes to you.
Big
and a
shout
big
out.
shout out.
And happy anniversary to you guys, too.
10th anniversary. Very, very cool. Trevor Starr in Hollywood, who you know as Trevor in Concord. He moved to Hollywood. I did not approve the addition of another Trevor. Yes, there is an additional Trevor now in our midst.
We have more than one. That means we're growing big.
We're growing to a second Trevor. Very exciting.
Big shout out.
Big shout out. Wes for a $5. Thank you, Wes.
Big shout out.
Mm-hmm. Really, really cool. And Harry Magnan, yes, Mark, you are an acquired taste. So is good scotch. I read this before, but it's always fun to read these things again. Thanks, Tony.
Thanks, Tony.
Tony is just coming to. He's worked the morning show at some angel station all morning. He had to get out of bed.
No, it was at KFI this morning.
Oh, you got to get out at 4 a.m. or what time do you get to KFI?
3:34.
Yeah, so that's why he's just coming to now.
Yep.
Tony, I recommend you go back. It's been a really good show. You should listen. We did most of our Middle East stuff at the beginning, and we've done a lot of stuff on politics and on big money and on Trump with David Cay Johnston toward the end. Sadly, because of the news cycle, we haven't gotten to a lot of other sort of regular things. I have a great That's Rich segment. I have even some stuff that relates to politics that's not related to Trump, but I'm afraid I'm going to have to put it off to tomorrow.
Yeah.
I will tell you this quickly because I know a lot of you love Rudy Giuliani, and it's sad what's happened to him. I know he's got a lot of fans, and they've now, the IRS they have placed a lien on his Florida condo. So he is now,
What?
Yeah. Property records reveal that Giuliani and then wife Judith Nathan bought this 3-bedroom home in this condominium complex in Florida for $1.4 million in 2010. Then Giuliani got it in the divorce, sole ownership. Now it's worth $3.3 million. And then they tried to sell it, then they didn't. Anyway, the IRS wants its money. And apparently, Giuliani didn't pay the money, and as a result, the IRS has put a lien on his property. As you're aware, this isn't the only fire that he's fighting to put out. He's facing criminal charges in Fulton County, Georgia, for his role in the alleged conspiracy to subvert the will of voters after Trump lost the state to Biden in 2020. That could add millions in legal bills. He is underwater. He's also being sued, as you're aware, for comments and actions after the 2020 election, spreading false claims of election fraud. He lost a defamation suit from 2 Georgia election workers. You'll remember how he destroyed those lives. I mean, I really think he, it's sad he can't be doing time for that.
I thought he had like a $100,000 a plate dinner, he and Donald Trump, to raise money for Rudy Giuliani's, struggling finances. So where's all that money?
Yeah, well, I mean, even if that was sold out, he's still going to be underwater. Mm-hmm. He's got real problems, millions of dollars worth of problems. So Rudy, go figure it out. He's a guy who is selling properties or having properties taken over by the government. Just to review, Thursday night is our virtual meetup. We have 1 seat left if you want it, because we lost an East Coaster because of the hours. Yeah. Happy to have you join. I'm also happy to ride right in with who we've got. We've got a really good group. I have a bunch of special guests coming too, so I'm looking forward to allowing the audience that normally can only text in or can only comment to actually interact with some of our regulars and also some special guests. So again, it is Thursday night. And what's that?
7:45 to 9:45, right?
7:45 to 9:45. Yeah. mtsmeetup@gmail.com. mtsmeetup@gmail.com. And yeah, it's a $50 donation to the show to secure a seat. We only have 1 seat left, so looking forward to that. Well, we've done a lot.
Come from regular stock.
I know. Well, I know it maybe, the kind of thing that's too steep for like Clarence Thomas. But where are we, Tony? Kim, do I have anything else I have to do?
I don't think so.
No?
I think you've done very well today.
Well, you're the one who's done. You're the glue. You are the glue.
Pleased with what I heard on the show today.
Kim is the glue. I love it. We've learned a lot about each other today. I'll be honest with you. I don't know if I like everything I've learned. But look, you got to learn what you learn and move on. Am I right, people? Tomorrow, John Rothman will be here. We'll talk more about the Middle East and everything going on there. The now inevitable incursion into Gaza. the limited options on the part of Israelis and Palestinians. It's a mess, and we will talk a bit about it, but it won't be the exclusive focus of this show. The after party live is going to. Are you guys going down next? Yeah.
We'll do it live.
All right.
I'll write it and we'll do it live.
I'm Sheriff Stevens for the Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
Thank you all. So generous today. Thank you for lifting up our hearts. Love it. Till tomorrow. Bye-bye.